Hello and welcome to all members of SRTC's subject matter expert team for the freight element of the ongoing MTP update. This is Associate Transportation Planner Michael Redlinger, and I'm going to talk a bit about our environmental justice review. Just as a brief refresher, SRTC is bound by Title VI as well as 2 executive orders prescribing actions to address environmental justice in minority, low income, and limited English proficiency populations. It's important to counter a legacy of discriminatory planning policy emphasizes the importance of outreach to hard to reach communities so that we can better understand, anticipate, and mitigate possible impacts on disadvantaged or vulnerable populations in our planning area. It emphasizes the right to live, work, and play in a safe, clean environment for all of our community's residents. In this video, we'll be picking up where we left off in November with our tract level environmental justice analysis, which I will very briefly review before diving into how we utilized your great feedback in November and our block group level environmental justice analysis. I'll then show you our combined areas of potential disadvantage, including both block groups and census tracts, as well as how we're moving forward with the data and some key takeaways. In November, we presented our tract level environmental justice analysis, which focused on 6 key indicators of potential disadvantage, including low income, limited English proficiency, minorities, household without vehicle access, age dependency, and population with disabilities. Each tract was given a value based on standard deviations above or below the regional average, and those 6 measures taken as a whole, tracts that had a score of at least a half standard deviation above the regional average were selected as vulnerable. This graphic was presented in November, showing the results of that tract level analysis laid along with our freight activity centers in the region. And we received useful feedback on this visual. As I mentioned, notably, subject matter expert team members pinpointed several areas to potentially take a closer look. And we mentioned that we planned to do a secondary analysis on block groups to help catch some of those smaller geographies that maybe fell through the cracks in the tract level of analysis. Unfortunately, however, with the block group level data, there is greater margin of error for some of these measures, notably the household measures like carless households or limited English proficiency households. And there was some noise with age dependency that caused us to whittle down our measures we looked at just to low income and minority for data reliability purposes. Similar to the tract level analysis, each geography is given a score for each of these 2 measures based on its standard deviations above or below the regional average. And then the 2 measures are taken as a whole to determine whether or not the block group is vulnerable or not. And in this case, vulnerable if it's above average or well above average. This graphic shows the block group level IPD scoring for our planning area. I've gone ahead and excluded Liberty Lake and Deer Park because the northern and eastern regions of our planning area didn't have any geographies that were flagged as above average or vulnerable. However, I'm happy to share the countywide data or any visuals upon request, so don't hesitate to reach out. My email's at the end of this slide presentation. When you combined our vulnerable geographies at the block group level with what we had already pulled out at the tract level, you get this visual, which is our combined areas of potential disadvantage. The red color indicates geographies that are flagged as well above average vulnerability, while the oranger color are those that are flagged as above average. The transparency of the geographies relates to the population density. So you can see, for example, that Central Spokane has a higher population density than the West Plains. The block group level analysis did help us pick out some additional areas that weren't pinpointed in the tract analysis, namely some block groups south of I-90, adjacent to the Spokane River, near the NSC, near the boundary of Spokane Valley and Spokane, as well as a number of other locations. I'm happy to go into greater detail upon request, as I said. So what's next with this data? The data will inform our analysis of freight routes in the freight network, broadly speaking. We do plan to overlay it with safety data, and we will be looking at freight volumes and class designations against our areas of potential vulnerability. Moving beyond freight, we have the potential to develop a vulnerability index for geographies region-wide that could be used in multiple planning efforts, although that's probably a bit farther down the pipeline. Other possible applications, for example, Savannah, Georgia, when they analyzed the impact of freight movement and freight facilities on their EJ areas, they overlaid at-grade crossings and rail facilities, truck traffic, and other key freight data along with their EJ areas, and unfortunately did find some very significant overlap. Some of the key takeaways: it's very important for us to understand freight-related impacts on potentially disadvantaged populations, and specifically to recognize the relationship between freight and environmental justice and how the freight network impacts environmental justice populations in our planning area here in Spokane County. Many MPOs do include environmental justice or equity in their overarching goals for their long-range plan. So it's something that many MPOs, if not most MPOs, take a deep look at. The emphasis here is that the benefits and burdens of the transportation system need to be fairly distributed throughout the community and not fall disproportionately on certain groups of people or in groups that are harder to reach or groups that have a maybe smaller voice in the planning process. Thank you for watching this video. I'm happy to take any questions or send any full data. Like I said, my email address is mredlinger@srtc.org. And that's it. Thank you.